Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today for our two-part educational workshop, Building Momentum for Change. Today is session one, which is all about momentum starters, strengthening your capacity for change. If you are just joining us, please go ahead and drop a hello in the chat box. We'd love to see who we have on, your organization, what part of the country you're joining us from. Always great to see. Today's session is going to be recorded, so you will receive a PowerPoint version of the slides, as well as a recorded version of the entire webinar. And then when you join us for day two tomorrow, you'll get those slides as well as a recording. So we're very excited to go ahead and begin. All right, so I'm going to start by introducing our panel. We have Colleen Rudio, who is the Executive Management Exit Planning Consultant, co-founder, CEO, CEPA of Cascadia Management Group. Thanks for being here today, Colleen.
Thank you.
We have Libby Burnell, who is the Partner and Senior Consultant Certified Exit Planner of Cascadia Management Group. Thanks for being here today, Libby.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
And then we have David Blyer, who is the Co-founder, President, and CEO of Ariva. How you doing, David?
I'm doing great. Looking forward to a great presentation today. I just want to thank Libby and Colleen for participating, and Gabby, thank you very much for putting this on. And I really hope I don't know if we have a poll on this. I really hope everybody gets something out of this today. That's what we're here for. Thanks.
Awesome. And my name is Gabriella Salemi. I'm the Director of Marketing at Ariva, and I'll be the moderator for today. All right, I will pass this over to you, Colleen.
Excellent. Well, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, depending upon which time zone you are in. We are in the lovely state of Montana, so enjoying a brisk winter morning here. Very excited about this program. So for day one, we're going to focus on three primary areas. We're going to talk a little bit about how can you assess that change resiliency for not only for yourself as a leader, but also in your organization. And then we're going to talk a little bit more in depth about what your current change capacity is. Situationally, what is it you're dealing with, and how is it that that's fostering through your organization and showing up in your organization? And then we're going to wrap things up with some identifying momentum builders, and then David and Libby are going to just continue to add the value into the conversation as we go along, and we're expecting a lot of great takeaways for each and every one of you.
Thanks, Colleen. And to get things started, we would love to hear from you. So first question we'd like to ask, what is the biggest barrier your organization faces in building momentum? Is it internal capacity, staffing challenges, lack of strategic planning, limited funding diversity, difficulty engaging leadership, or board? And I know some of you might be facing all of these challenges, but we want to hear what is the top one that you seem to be struggling with in building momentum. And we'll give you a few seconds to submit your answers. All right, so looking at the results here, majority, 59% of you, your biggest struggle is limited funding diversity, following internal capacity and staffing challenges, and then tied, we have lack of strategic planning and difficulty engaging our leadership or board. Great to find out. Next question, we would like to know, which of the following would most indicate meaningful progress for your organization right now? Would it be improved donor retention, new major donors acquired, increased donor engagement, whether that's through emails, events, volunteers, peer-to-peer fundraisers, strong internal processes and systems? So this one, you might be thinking all of this would be great to make meaningful progress, but we want to know what would be your top choice from this list. We have a few more seconds for some responses to come in. All right, so looking at the results, 50% of you say that it would be acquiring new donors. 33% say increased donor engagement, 11% improved donor retention, and 6% stronger internal processes and systems. All right, well, we will have a few more polls later on for you in the presentation, but I'll go over and turn it to our panel.
Excellent. And those responses are exactly what we are experiencing with a lot of our clients and in the marketplace. So what I'd like to do is I'd like to go ahead and challenge you to really think about, from a donor perspective and from a fundraising diversification perspective, what does it really look like at the root cause of that? When we talk about attracting new additional donors to our organization, when we talk about increasing our fundraising, is that a physical change that needs to occur inside of the organization? Is it a technology change? Would that help you overcome those two challenges more specifically? Do you have all of the right authority in place? So does your board, are they fully on board with what it is that you're going to be trying to do fundraising around, who it is that your target audience is for? What does your marketplace look like and how does it respond to you in that position of authority? And then how does that become operationalized? That's where technology, policies, procedures, even AI really start to complement what it is that you're trying to accomplish from a strategic standpoint. And then, of course, we always try to put the people aspect of it last, not because people are last, people are first. But if you don't have those good physical structures in place, if you don't have the proper authorities, responsibilities, roles in place, and if your organization's operational systems are not able to respond to the opportunities that those people create, then you create barriers within that overall process. So I'm going to pause there, see if David and Libby have any other thoughts before we talk about the different types of change that might need to occur.
Libby?
No, I think that Colleen hit it right on the head. If we are really looking at how we can respond to change and how ready we can be to change in a rapidly evolving world, and donors as well, they're having to make decisions based on, I think, increased need. We really have to make sure that we have the physical taking care of, our authorities are in place, and operationally we're running as smooth as we can, in addition to being able to make sure that we're able to build those contingency plans that may happen when our donors or our funding might change.
Yeah, I would agree with that, Libby. And Gabby, if we want to go ahead and go to the next slide, I think this is the first part. Now, this becomes the second piece of this equation. So when we're looking at change, we want to really look at that, not only the physical, the authority, whether or not you've got the right people in the right roles, but you also want to look at the change scenario. There are three different types of changes that can take place inside of an organization. Each one of them requires us to respond differently. That temporary change structure is really short term. Someone does not show up on a big event day. You thought that you had donors lined up for a certain particular sponsorship for an event or for a particular program, product, or service, and one of them has to back away. Those are temporary type scenarios that you move around, and you want to have those contingency plans like Libby was just referring to overcome any one of those temporary scenarios. Then you've got transitional type of scenarios. These ones is really where I'm going to use technology as an example. When you're transitioning from one particular system to the next, when you're transitioning from one policy structure to the next policy structure, or you're changing the operational workflows inside your organization to be able to respond to your donor submissions more accurately, more quickly, more succinctly, those are all transitional. They require more thought, and they do require an expected change in that new state or towards that new state. The last change scenario requires the most planning, sometimes the most resources, and are typically where we see organizations maybe get hung up. And that is not recognizing when you are in a state of transformative change inside your organization. So when you are actually deciding to fundamentally change the direction, your ideal state, your target audience, perhaps a program, product, or service, those are transformative change scenarios. And that does require a more in-depth analysis, which is what we're going to be talking about today and tomorrow. David, anything that you'd like to add to this? Because I know you've seen organizations go through all three of these types of changes.
Yeah, and I'm going to say it, one size does not fit all. And I think all of the things that you're sharing, whether it's transformative, transitional, temporary, it all plays a very vital role. And the biggest thing that you have to do is know when and how to pivot and do it very quickly.
Yeah, I would agree with
Yeah.
that completely. And as we move on to the next stage, Libby's going to talk over the next couple of slides in regards to what does the role of capacity mean as you're going through this change process inside your organization? So Libby, if you talk a little bit about capacity and then our P5 model.
Lovely. Well, when dealing with change, we not only have to decide what type of change it is, but we also have to recognize what our current state capacity is to be able to adjust or pivot or plan our contingencies. Capacity building really fits into our ability to grow knowledge, to enhance skills, to analyze systems and really leverage those, and also our leadership in ways that allow our organizations to really be able to adapt to change, to stay compliant, to remain, effective in a changing environment. And we've seen that changing environment, I think, escalate in terms of what we deal with on a day-to-day. It can change from day to day because nonprofits are being asked to do more lately. You have tighter margins, you have higher donor expectations, and increasing complexity. So when we really go through building capacity intentionally and not reactively, then I think we have more success in being able to pivot when things change. The other thing, and Gabriella, if you could go to the next slide, the other thing that really helps do that is using a capacity framework to help you see where you're strong and where you might be stretched. Here at Cascadia, we use our P5 functional capacity, where we look at our organization and its alignment to purpose, to product, to processes, to people, and to profit. And by being able to look at your organization as a system, instead of perhaps silos, then you're able to really see where, one, there may be misalignments, two, where there are communication issues, and three, as Colleen was talking about before, where the root cause of maybe inefficiencies or things not working well, or not being able to leverage the power of systems, et cetera, might be. A lot of times we find that the people bucket gets blamed at times when we're looking at root cause because these people aren't maybe doing what we think they need to do. But if we look deeper down, it might be a purpose issue. They're not aligning to purpose. It might be a process issue. Our processes aren't efficient. So what makes the P5 so useful is being able to look at your organization as a system where things connect and not as silos. And then that way, when you are looking at your challenges and you're not, living up to what you have promised to your stakeholders, that's where those misalignments show up in the 5 Ps.
Yeah.
As
and
you
Libby,
all,
I'm gonna add to that just a little bit before we go on to the next one. If you're taking notes, make a cheat sheet, put down each of the individual Ps. And as we're going through the program, not only today, but tomorrow, start putting the things that you're seeing and that you're recognizing that are occurring inside of your organization around each of these areas. If you know that you have great plans in place to increase your donors, to increase your funding, diversification and your different ways of funding, look at your bylaws. If your bylaws are not in agreement with what you're trying to do from a strategic standpoint, put that down in the purpose bucket. Start identifying as we're throwing out all of these different ways by which capacity is either improved upon and you build momentum around it, or it's sacrificed and you start to create capacity friction. Start writing those down for yourself. So create your little side cheat sheet and just start filling up your buckets. It's a great, easy framework for you to go ahead and end our 2-day program with a lot of things identified that perhaps you might not have identified before we got started.
Great. And that's super important because when one of those Ps is out of alignment, the strain shows up everywhere. So another tool that we use when we're talking about capacity building is our P5 capacity scale. This is really about defining your current and your future state. So using a tool like this really helps identify where you are strong and where you might need to focus attention. We're going to go more in depth tomorrow on using this scale to conduct some micro audits inside your organization. But it's definitely a place to very quickly inside your organization to say, for what we're trying to do right now, we're really at a 2, which means that we don't have consistency in what we're doing. Our systems aren't being leveraged. Our people may not be trained. And we really want to get to a 3. So how do we get to a 3 quickly? What we find with organizations is they're going to be throughout this scale, throughout their life cycle. You might get to something you're doing, a new fundraiser. And so, you're at a 1 to begin with. And then Pretty soon you're at a 3 a couple of years later because you built consistency. And then you're going to innovate. What happens then once you innovate is you go back down the scale. And so being able to quickly define where you're at is really helpful in saying, this is where we need to focus our attention. For us, for the clients we work with, we want most of their P's to be at a 3, at least a 3, right? But many of our clients, when they really start focusing in on, well, where am I at? They might be at a 2, a 2.5, and in some areas they're at a 4, which is great. So we know that we need to focus on those areas that are lower on the scale.
Yeah, and this fits in very nicely, David, with I think where you're going to touch base here, and that is how do we determine where we're at and how we use technology to get us where we're trying to go. So I think with that in mind, let's turn it over to you to kick us off with our first bucket, which is purpose management.
I love it. Thank you. And I think Gabby has a poll to start this. Did you want to do the poll first, Gabby?
Sure, we can go ahead. We would love to know, are you satisfied with your current donor acquisition, retention, and engagement? All right, give it a couple more seconds here. All right, so looking at the results, 88% of you are not satisfied. Currently, 13% of you are.
Well, you know what? It's not surprising, and I don't want anybody to feel bad about that because I think there's a lot of struggling out there. And really, what this does is, and you've heard it before, and I'll say it a few times today, but it's one size fits all, which used to be the way we used to do things, an email to everybody or a conversation to everybody or an event to everybody. Doesn't work anymore. It really doesn't, and it's really evident. We've had an opportunity to actually do educational webinars with the Giving USA and the report with the people. It's really fascinating. But looking at the results from this year is what we're seeing is some of the biggest challenges today that a lot of nonprofits are faced with. And when we looked at, when we're talking about donor acquisition and retention and engagement, it really does boil down to those 3 areas. So when you're truly looking at the statistics out there, and there are studies that have been done, and on average, the donor retention rate is just 45%. And even more strikingly, 19% of first-time donors give again, and that's it. 53% of nonprofits say donor acquisition, again, is one of their top 3 challenges. So the results here that you're sharing with us today is not surprising. We're also seeing a 4.7 decline in charitable giving dollars when adjusted for inflation. Obviously, this just means organizations are working harder to raise the same amount of money, and that's really hard. But there's still truly hope. There's a tremendous opportunity. Individuals continue to drive philanthropy. I mean, it really is amazing. And the statistics are showing that 66% of all charitable giving in the US is from individual giving. So it really does tell us some simple things. Success isn't always about doing more. It's about connecting with the right people at the right time, and honestly, with the right messaging to the right people, and it's not one messaging to all. And that's really what this webinar is all about today, and how we can help strengthen your strategy, how to deepen donor relationships, and really set your organizations up for hopefully long-term success, in this new year. But many donors, and we know this, many donors give once, they feel good about it, and you never hear from the organization again in a meaningful way. I mean, you may send out an email, but is that really showing the impact? They don't feel part of the story. I hear this all the time, and when people don't feel connected, they truly move on. I can tell you 100 stories on this, and I've been in very similar situations, even where I could tell you stories about that, where we donated to 3 same type of organizations, and the responses, and I felt some I did not feel connected. I mean, some made me feel connected and truly compelled. So donors don't just want to know the difference they're making. You got to tell more impact stories. I'll say it that way. It's not just about the outcomes, and when I mention one size doesn't fit all, if you can really go into your database and segment and personalize things, this is going to speak volumes to your donors. Really speaking to the donors on their relationships with you. And if you really have the ability to take notes on every single donor and how you're doing that, but in a very efficient way through technology, it's going to change the way you do things. We speak of it, I know everybody talks about it, but showing gratitude early and often, it's it's as simple as that. It's not just the automatic thank you acknowledgement receipts. It's how you're responding. I mean, you hear a lot about stewardship today, and it's something more than just even at the end of the year and saying thank you. It starts the moment someone gives any time during the year, and really engaging all year round. I mean, you've got to thrive on the ones that treat donors like partners. I mean, not transactions. You heard that a little bit earlier. And if you can really make every donor feel seen, valued, part of something bigger, your retention, your acquisition, your fundraising results will change dramatically. I have seen this. We literally track a lot of this information, even besides the stats that you're hearing from the Giving USA report this year.
Yeah, David, you're so spot on. And so for our program, you're going to see a little rhythm here that's starting to unfold. We're going to talk, and if Gabrielle, if you can go to the next slide, we're going to talk about each of the P's. I want you to look at these individual slides and go, where is my message disconnect from purpose? If purpose management is one of the P5 areas that you're trying to make sure is connected properly to your overall strategies, is it in the mission? Are you communicating that through your messaging? Is it perhaps through how quickly you are able to manage change and how those contingency plans that Libby was talking about could actually allow you to respond more swiftly? So technology, messaging, alignment, contingency planning, you're going to see that theme as we go through each one of these areas. And then tomorrow, as Libby indicated, we're going to really dig in and talk about what does a micro audit look like in these different areas. But today we're going to definitely provide that broader overview. If you can go ahead and go to the next slide. Hope we can hear you.
There we go.
Yep.
We have a quick poll that we would just love to get your feedback on. How consistent is your messaging across channels? And this can be internal messaging across teams, your website, emails, social media, events. And you have the option for very consistent, mostly consistent, different messaging depending on different platforms, not consistent at all, or maybe you're not sure.
And when we look at the when we kind of take this information, this poll, and then layer it on top of the P5 scale, you might want to take each of your campaigns. One campaign might be at a 3. It might be operating at a 4. And then you have another campaign that you're kind of beta testing, you're testing out new information on new donors. And so it might be at a 1. As the leaders of the organization, as the leaders of the fundraising within the organizations, it's our responsibility to know for each of those individual campaigns, which ones are operating at a 3, which ones are at a 1, which ones are at a 5. When you look at most consistently with some gaps, that tells us that you are consistently operating between a 2 and a 3, and innovation and acquisition and actually being able to make sure that you're attaching to those donors might be an area of opportunity. David, would you agree with that assessment?
Oh, we're going to talk about that in a minute, and 100% yes.
Yeah.
Well, I talk to a lot of nonprofit leaders literally across the country, and I keep on hearing certain things over and over again, how difficult it is to stand out. I mean, that's really, if you're thinking about the messaging, how do I stand out? It's not just about fundraising, but it's connecting with the hearts, the people, your attention increasingly. I mean, there's so much noise in this industry and so much noise in the world. How do you gain that, right? I mean, so what are the strategies? And we'll cover some of these strategies today, but I think a couple things, and I keep on going back, is truly developing a very strong value proposition. I know we talk about that at Ariba all the time, value proposition. Every nonprofit has a mission, but not every nonprofit can clearly communicate why it matters right now. I mean, and this is what it's really about, right? I mean, some organizations, they raise the most money, they've learned to connect their causes to something immediate and personal. Um, and the way they do that, it's more like something they may say something like, I understand why this matters and I want to be part of it, right? Um, you know, there's I've never heard more about storytelling in so many different ways than really over the last 18 months. I mean, and so much is rising up about it. But data informs, and I think data is very important, but stories inspire, right? So what is that compelling, storytelling that you want to do? A donor might remember your mission statement once, but they'll never forget the story of one life your organization changed. I mean, it doesn't have to be a lot, right? It's just that one compelling. So storytelling transforms fundraising from a transactional environment into truly a shared purpose. And by the way, we'll talk about consistency, but don't do it one time, right?
Yeah.
Leveraging visual contact, for emotional. We talk so much about emotional impact today, emotional IQ, emotional this. It is true. A picture, a short video, even a single image with a powerful caption can do what words sometimes can't. Help people feel your mission. I mean, visuals cut through the noise and really makes your message uh, truly memorable. I mean, it really does. And finally, scheduling, believe it or not, scheduling and deliver targeting email campaigns, whether it's through emails, through social media posts, but it really is about consistency and timing. You can't just send one email and expect amazing results. You can't. You've got to analyze it. Who opened it up? Who didn't open it up? What were the responses? Organizations that perform best by planning out their campaigns, scheduling strategically, tailoring messages. We go back to the different audiences, whether it's generational gaps. So every donor feels like you're speaking directly to them. I can't emphasize it enough. I mean, we talk about this stuff, and then, how do you schedule and deliver targets? I know it's not easy. I mean, I just left a meeting this morning about planning this out 90 days in advance in April and May and June, but not overkilling the messaging, right? So segmenting your audience. I mean, you should be able to do this through your databases. If you can't, we should definitely talk about it. But tailoring emails and social posts, you want to do this in a number of different ways, whether there's donor history there, maybe when you're making a phone call because somebody responded or you're reaching out, you're typing in what their interests are. So you're learning a little bit more about their interests or, geographic locations. I mean, for instance, first time donors might receive a welcome and a thank you. While, long-term donors get updates on legacy products that they've supported. I mean, there's a lot of different ways of really focusing on that. Also, using analytics to determine the best times to send emails or posts on social media. Just give me an example, like email sent on Tuesday mornings. The studies show that often they see higher engagement rates on these things, right? I mean, we just did another one and they were telling us do it at 7 o'clock in the morning. And they're like, people are up at 7 o'clock in the morning. Don't question it, track it, see how many people actually did open it. There's a lot more to this. I always believe in this, use calls to actions in a strategic way. Make sure that every email and post has a clear, direct next step, whether it's donate now, I mean, as simple as that, or share the story, or join our volunteer team. Have some sort of call to action that's leading them, at a path. And I really mean this. Track everything that you can possibly track. I know we talk about this every single day. Track your open rates, track click-throughs. If you can track conversion rates to understand what's resonating with the audiences and the emails that you're sending out, and then you can adjust it. We talked about that earlier about pivoting, but donors want to feel their contributions matter today, and clearly articulating your value proposition, sharing impactful stories, leveraging visual content, truly maintaining consistent outreach. Like we know and we see this, that these are the things that can inspire deeper connections and really truly create long-term loyalty. Remember, every email, every post or story isn't just an ask. It truly is an opportunity to demonstrate the change your organization is driving, and inviting donors to be part of it. So this is really what these four elements are really all about, building real connections. There's some great stories in here about building connections and showing results. I mean, I think they're on the screen if you can see it. It was a great thing of them sending an email with a call to action to go back to their website to a specific page. And this was more about their specific things that were in certain reports, but they took out that they wanted their audience to see it was a Boys and Girls Club. Go to this page. It's great if you can want to see the link. It's right there.
Yeah, I love what you're talking about, David. And I want to point out that as David is speaking, he's talking not only about purpose, but also the programs, the products, the services that you're bringing forward, the processes that are helping support it. Data analysis is a big component within our process bucket. And then also making sure that we're paying attention to the donors, which is that people aspect of it. So let's go ahead and talk about a couple of these points to ponder. Once again, our role today is to really get you thinking, not only about what it is that you currently have inside your organization and what's working and what's not working, but where those gaps are that the polls are identifying. So here's a couple of points to ponder as it relates to the purpose management. And then I'm going to go ahead and have Libby really kind of dive into the next two areas. And that includes not only the programs, products, and services, but also the prospect of it. And then David and I will kind of wrap things up with the people aspect of it. And then that final bucket, which I know we're all interested in, that is additional fundraising, profitability, and how do we make all of this come together from a financial perspective. So purpose management points to ponder: consistency. You heard David bring that up in a couple of different ways. Making sure that there's good, proper alignment. And then making sure that the clarification of purpose is defined across your entire organization, not only just the dashboards that are related to your fundraising, but also your job descriptions and everything else across the board, including communications. So those are the three takeaways as it relates to purpose management. Libby will take us through the next two areas of programs, products, and services and process.
Excellent. Thank you, Colleen. Programs, products, and services are what most nonprofits really focus on when they're talking to donors. That includes any of your service lines. It includes your feedback in those service lines, your market needs analysis, your online reputation management, all of those things that flow into your programs, products, and services. Gabriella, if you could move to the next slide, please. Thank you. One of the things that I think is super important when you're talking about cultivating donors, diversifying strategies, is which product, program, or service are you going to highlight in this? Because many nonprofits have, 10, 15, 20, 25 products, programs, and services. What resonates with your donors to be able to highlight? And what went into, what do you see in the market? What problem are we solving, right? And how are we marketing around those things? Because as donors see these products and these services out there in the community, and they're getting feedback, they know the feedback in the community. Oh, it's really great that XYZ nonprofit has this program. I know several people who use it. They are more invested in making sure those products, programs, and services keep sustaining throughout the life of the nonprofit. One of the things I will say too, and this goes back to what Colleen was saying, is purpose. We've worked with lots of nonprofits who have done a product, program, and service audit to see what fits and what doesn't anymore. Does the market still need XYZ program, or is it something that we've just done for a really long time that maybe we need to build into another service or fold into that service line, or some that we need to let go of? So aligning your product strategy is really important to making sure that your donors, they invest in those programs, products, and services. David, would you agree with that?
Oh, 100%. And when you think about all of these things, I just go back to some statistics. I know this is a very busy slide. I'm just going to walk through some of these really awesome things because I love talking about so many different things. But when you look at 61% of donors worldwide prefer giving online, and these are real stats, make sure you have and it's really both. It's not only an online presence, but it's an offline presence. When we talk about building and engaging online and offline presence, I talk more on the lines of a strong multimedia, multi-channel presence. Make sure your mission, your impact a truly visible, accessible, whenever donors are interacting with your organizations. I could go into this for a very long time. Invest if you haven't. And I see this all the time. I mean, one of the services that we provide, and I'm not trying to promote this, is what we call we have our own website development team. We did it for a lot of good social reasons, but a lot of websites are not built for donor centric. I mean, your website is the foundation truly of your online presence. You got to make sure it's mobile responsive, it's visually appealing, it's easy to navigate. I mean, a lot of websites aren't. I mean, highlight sections like, our mission, success stories, donate right on the homepage. And I could show you so many wonderful areas of the way people have been even more successful because we've tracked results. And the other thing is, I could go into the story, but it's really important that you have a platform on whatever you're doing. I'll say it's a transaction, whether it's a donation, event, peer-to-peer fundraising. When your donors or constituents are on your website, you should never have them click a button and push off of your website. We're seeing with us site engagement going up by over 215%. Truly invest in your website. Leveraging social media, we talked about this, but really, sharing your mission content that's educational, it inspires, there's calls to action, use a mix of photos, videos, testimonials. I mean, showcase your impact. Again, relook at it. I mean, there's so many great tools out there, but tailoring your messaging for platforms, even like Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok, whatever that generational, and adjusting to that. Promote your offline events through different types of emails or, on the social media side. But you really want to capture compelling content, during events to really, blow out, your online presence afterwards. Use consistent branding and messaging across all the channels. This is really going to help you strengthen and really recognize and build even further trust on these things.
And David,
I've had a lot of meetings.
I was going to say, you're so spot on that, because what you're really trying to do here is, highlight that storytelling. And that storytelling often comes from not only why you do what you do, but, what are the ways that the market can interact with you, but also, your stakeholders can interact with you. So honestly, like these products and services and programs, these are like the meat of those, calls to action to continue these things, to building your case studies, to showing your impact. And if you can do that really, really well, then your likelihood of donors and obviously making it easy for them to donate, but it hits their why I donate. And that is the key, I think, when you're thinking about your products, programs, and services, to really figure out what makes a difference in the communities that we serve. What will people support, and how do we tell that story on our website and in our interactions day to day, and developing how do we, build data on the back end to be able to show what our impact is. And so as we think about what if we're looking at points to ponder in our programs, products, and services, Gabrielle, if you could move forward, is really truly how are we defining, right, what we do and how we do it? How are we looking at our ROI of our programs and services? And how does that data look to those donors who are out there? And then also, how are we collecting all the data and the technology and then using that, to David's point, to tell our story and to track our donor retention and our donor visibility and the ease at which they interact with us? Would you say those are great points to ponder, wouldn't you say, David?
100%. You're spot on, Libby.
Yeah. David was pointing to process management, because frankly, you can have the best purpose in the world, you can have the best programs and services, but if you can't deliver on your promises, not only to those you serve, but to your stakeholders, you're going to find that you won't have much success. So going to the next slide, really thinking about managing your process. How do we go through tasks and documentation? Are all of our job descriptions, does everybody know what they're supposed to do? What's our continuous improvement mindset, et cetera? I will tell you, when I was an interim ED for a local nonprofit, I sat with a donor whose concern was this. She wanted to make sure that her donation, when she made it, would be useful and used appropriately and not just frittered away because we were inefficient. I spent over an hour with her going through all of our efficiency initiatives, what we were going to use money for, how we were going to improve our service, and how we were going to serve more people. So process truly is on the minds of your donors because they want to know that when they give, that money is going to be efficiently used to do more and to serve more.
Acknowledgement and showing gratitude to your donors is more than just good manners. It's a key driver in donor acquisition, satisfaction, long-term support. If you are not responding on any transaction that they do, meaning it's a donation, a registering for an event, a gift from a peer-to-peer fundraising, whatever that is, within 48 hours to 72 hours, that will turn something from a very positive situation and building out donor acquisition, donor retention, uh, than it will be. And I hear too many times that organizations, oh my God, David, it's taking us 30, 45 days. And they think the other side is being very polite, but I could tell you that's where donor acquisition or retention is being reduced. Timeliness is truly key. Expressing the gratitude immediately after receiving any type of direct or indirect donation just reinforces to donors that their contribution is really valued and impactful. Why? If you call me 30 days after that, I'd be like, I'd hang up and I'm like, yeah, I'm glad I got the call. I guess my donation wasn't that important. So maybe I'm
Yeah.
going to give it to somebody else. I mean, even using automatic email acknowledgments, and it's not just about automatically sending them a thank you message, which is really important anyways, but it's also customizing different templates for like I said earlier about donor specific details that they did. And again, I can't emphasize timeliness of 48 to 72 hours. Again, personalizing, creating is connection, right? I mean, addressing donors by their name, their references, the things that you've learned about them, and there's a lot of different ways of doing this, but, mention the specific campaign or the program that they did. Thank you, Sarah, for helping us provide 100 meals to families in need through the holiday hunger relief campaign, whatever that was, because now it's a field instead of I don't know about everybody else, but I have received so many non-personal emails, and sometimes they even have the wrong name, believe it or not. Make
Mm-hmm.
sure your database is up to date. Again, there's multiple ways of showing gratitude, whether it's handwritten notes, whether it's personal phone calls. I mean, maybe you have it set up. If it's under $1,000, this person gets it. If it's over $1,000, a phone call gets it. Whatever that scripting is, and maybe even hosting. I've seen some wonderful organizations really put this into play of having exclusive donor appreciation events. It's not just about events themselves, but maybe it's behind the scenes, maybe it's tours. I mean, there's a lot of different ways. And again, I can't emphasize it enough, but measuring and tracking will really help you pivot and adjust things. Even if you're doing surveys, we do a lot of surveys to donors, understanding their preferences, their experiences, how would you prefer to be thanked for your contribution? Some of these things should even be on your donation pages. Do you want to be contacted this way? Texting, email, phone, whatever, you should have those things. And then just highlighting personalized, maybe spotlighting people on your website, featuring individuals, whether it's in a newsletter, whether it's in social media, whether it's on your website, it doesn't matter. Share why they support your cause, how their donations made an impact, what your mission meant to them, and again, I keep on using examples, but use photos, use quotes, video clips, but ask permission before you do it also, to spotlight them. I mean, that is really important. And then just, after collecting all the donor feedback, this should really give you more valuable information on how to follow up with people, you and then again, I think why this approach truly works as a as a global, it really does build loyalty. I mean, when you're doing things that are personal, that you're doing timely gratitude, it really truly strengthens relationships. I mean, and you'll see that, inspiring, actions, whether it's, spotlighting these people, people feel acknowledged. I mean, people do want to feel acknowledged. Now, some of them may say, I don't, but that's okay. But a lot of people want to hear and be encouraged and influence others. And I mean, I could go into this further, but whether it's ambassador programs and they're doing this, there's just a lot of different ways of getting this feedback and really making adjustments to this. But again, recognizing and appreciating donors are more, they're going to more likely to continue supporting your mission than ever before. And you should, see a difference in your donor acquisition if you're tracking it, from this year to last year or the last 3 years. But again, I think just some of the key takeaways is act quickly, personalize everything that you can possibly do, come up with different methods on personal touches, whether it's handwritten notes or phone calls. I love phone calls. I think it's so meaningful. And again, celebrating individual support is in different ways, whether it's publicly or privately or however you want to do that. But truly, learn from the past and adjust for the future. And I think that's what Libby and Colleen has been talking about as well.
Yeah,
and
that's a
David,
nice that's a great segue to the final points to ponder for the processing. So as you're hearing David go into more detail around the value of the system, the value of using systems and some of the experiences that they've had, we're looking at those core processes being defined. Take a step back, think through each of the individual segments of your donor process. Do you have do you get out of the gate really strong, but then something starts to fall apart, inefficiencies, redundancies, breakdowns start to happen. Where do they happen? Do they happen in the follow-up? Do they happen on that acquisition of the donor, cultivating that donor? And then how can you really leverage and utilize continuous improvement thinking in looking at your practices and your processes to make sure that you're staying as fresh and you're maintaining, what you need to change to make sure that you're meeting your donors and those that are giving to your organization where they are. Doesn't matter where we are, it matters where they are. And if we're trying to meet them where they are, we do that through automations, we do that through intention, and we do that through these first couple of P's that we've been looking at. If we want to go ahead and move on to that next segment, I think, David, it fits in very nicely to where you were talking about. So people management is both internal, external. You also have not only just your donors, but you also have your volunteers, you have your board members, you have your employees. And it's really important to make sure that you're looking at each of those individual people segments uniquely different as it relates to how they're contributing to your overall donor management process and how you're overall creating that momentum behind your mission and behind what it is that you're accomplishing. So if you go to the next slide, I think that this, reconfirms the value of the system, the value of being able to integrate things in a very systematic way. So when you think about systematic approaches, that's where this system comes into play so beautifully. You're not just talking about expanding your reach in one segmentation. You're talking about how does that expansion of the reach automatically cross over into the fundraising tools that are available. Now let's flip back into the program, product, and service conversation that Libby shared. You may select different fundraising tools for different programs, products, and services. Give yourself the time to map that out. Not every single tool is going to fit every single program scenario. David was bringing up as it relates to, making sure that we've got good follow-up and making sure that everybody is engaged at a very high level. Challenging the teams, creating unique opportunities to engage in unique ways around your fundraising events, and then making sure that all of that connects to that social media ongoing presence and making sure that that's telling the story that ties you back to purpose. That's the beauty of integrating technology and purpose together in one single unit. David, would you agree with how that all comes together as we're moving into our last couple of buckets here?
I'm going to let you move to the last bucket, but I'll just reinforce this is not just about raising money. It's truly you're building a movement. You're really
connection.
Yeah.
Yep, 100%. And so when you look at that, if you go to the last few points to ponder on the people side of it, that's what we're talking about together. We're talking about how do you clearly define every segment inside your organization to connect? How do you make sure that connection is not only happening automatically, but it's being fostered and grown upon and cultivated over and over? So every single connection, I'm just going to share this one quick story because I know we're running out of time. I had the absolute pleasure of serving as the interim executive for YMCA. So I had the opportunity to work with YMCA at the YUSA level. And I will tell you what, purpose, connection, and integration of purpose, connection to process, people, and then overarching profitability, management of the organization, management of the efficiencies within the organization. They do a beautiful job of threading the entire organization through all of those 5 Ps, and then using technology, whether it be your donor system or your accounting system or any other system that you have, your HRC system for human resource management, whatever it is, you got to thread those needles. And if you don't thread the needles, that's when the inefficiencies come in, and then your people get left behind. Your donors get left behind, your volunteers get left behind, and your team members get left behind. And then that 30-day comment that David brought up earlier becomes reality. They wonder, how did you forget about me? I gave. How did you forget about me? I volunteered. How did you forget about me? I connected to your story. It's our responsibility to maintain that connection with intention and effort. And all of these tools that we're presenting to you today give you the ability to really make that connection happen. You're threading the needle on this. It's not one and done. It's not one size fits all. You got to do it all at the same time. Otherwise, you can't get to the final bucket. So if you want to go to the last slide there, or the next slide, Gabby, and that's profit management. Now, I know in a nonprofit segmentation, we don't always think about profit, but you are running a business. Your organization is a business. How you manage your donors, your volunteers, your team members, your events, how you manage your systems, how you oversee and utilize your data,
Excellent.
all of that feeds into profitability. So we're going to bypass some of these sort of things, but I'm going to highlight a few things that I think are really important, David, and then I'll have you kind of take it to the final stages of these 2 last polls. And that is, data matters, but if you don't have the systems to manage the data, then your data doesn't matter anymore. So David, do you want to talk a little bit and do some of the polls, the final polls, to talk about how we bring all this together for them?
I think you set that up so well. Yeah, Gabby?
Yeah. I can go ahead and go through this one. So we would like to know, to Colleen's point, how many solutions are you using to manage donor activity? So that can be online donations, recurring giving, peer-to-peer, volunteers, grants, events, maybe a centralized place to keep your donor data. So you have a few options to choose from there. Give a few more seconds for some responses to come.
Even auction software, text-based
Yeah.
solutions. I mean, these are all things that you're using in an environment that are siloed databases or siloed applications that are not communicating.
And everybody uses the word integration. If you hear a technology firm saying that they integrate, you have to validate integration. And David, I know you can speak to that validation component.
Oh, yes, by far.
Then
Wow.
just looking at the results, majority 38% are using 3, 5 or more, 4, 2, and 1. All right. And then we've got one more poll question for you here. We want to know, are you manually having to move that data from all those separate siloed solutions into one centralized location or a CRM?
And while
And
you're
is it
filling
time
that out,
consuming?
yeah, and while you're filling that out, just for time, so we can get to some questions for you, and Gabby will move the slides along. But for everybody that doesn't know Ariba, I would always like to do a poll on that. Even though you're here at our webinar, you don't always necessarily know exactly what Ariba does. But we've been in the industry for more than 30 years. We're very proud of that. We focus exclusively in the nonprofit sector. We have thousands of clients worldwide, and these are just some of the national accounts that we literally have gone through a vetting and approval process, that have gone through enormous detail to learn about us, to recommend to other organizations. But really, what Ariba truly did was, and you heard about it today, even on the last few slides, is you all face, not everybody, but face a lot of different challenges, right? There's a lot of different software out there. You have point solutions. It was literally 78% have 2 or more applications. And when you do that, you have very limited integration, very limited automation. It's costly to manage. I mean, I could go into this, even tell you stories about the administrative time and the manual input And when you're doing moving of data this way, you are really having what we see a lot is limited communication between yourself and your constituents. Also, the communication that you're having, the engagement that you're having isn't always as consistent as hard as you try to do it. And people are looking for other solutions. And this is where Ariva has really established themselves. First of all, we have many applications. The nice thing about this is they're fully integrated as one solution with one unified database. You don't have to buy everything. But we have really spent years understanding and listening to our constituents that are out there, to our nonprofit clients and what they've needed. Even when they said, oh my God, I have all this wonderful software, David, it's all in one, but why don't you have team fundraising? Now I got to buy a third party and move it. Well, we have it. What about auction software? The same thing. What about text to give? And we really created that solution. And again, in the simplest terms, Gabby, if you could, yeah, it's all one unified database. And this is really what is creating a lot of efficiencies now, but reducing that administrative time of moving data. And the results that our clients are seeing are truly incredible. So if you'd ever like to learn more, I guess there's a yeah, go ahead, Gabby.
Yeah, there's a poll up on your screen if you would like to learn more. I'll leave that up for a bit so you have time to answer, and then we'll pass it back to you guys.
Yeah, I think that let's go ahead and bring all of this to full circle so we can open it up for a few questions. First of all, in the comments, the chat boxes, thank you guys for the compliments. I mean, I really do feel like there is a value in connecting your functional operational organization to your technologies that you're using. And that's the reason why, we at Cascadia love to partner with Ariva so closely, because they get that, they understand it. And I think that that's an important thing. Points to ponder as it relates to that final bucket, which is, of course, profit management and or funding management. Really looking at that financial model in a segmented way. The same approach that we recommended you take to your programs, products, and service, take it to your profit model as well. Look at your chart of accounts. How are you dissecting how you are recording each of the individual transaction? Can you actually dissect your financial data further? Will that help in utilizing the system more effectively? And to David's point, pulling in that data analysis more effectively. So when we talk about dissecting, when we talk about that change management and really getting down to root cause, we want you to apply that across all five or all of the 5 Ps. So with that said, I want to open it up for just broad-based questions. We only have a little bit of time left, so we'll open it up to any questions from anyone out there in our webinar world.
Thanks, Colleen. We don't have any questions at the moment, but I'll wait for some of those to come in. We have the chat box and the Q&A. But in the meantime, if you'd like to learn more about Cascadia Management Group from Colleen or Libby, go ahead and hit yes, and we will send your info over to them as well. And I will keep an eye on the Q&A and the chat, see if we have any questions that come in.
David, final thoughts while we're waiting for questions.
Yeah, it's first of all, I can't thank you, Colleen and Libby, for an amazing, and I truly love your program, and I know your clients are amazed and they see amazing results from it. And honestly, I would take the question up about even learning more. It's not something that they're gonna pay for. I did see one comment in here. I wasn't sure if it was related, Colleen, to Cascadia or to Ariva, and I think we should answer that. I don't know if I can afford you. From an Ariva perspective, I can share it with you right now. We focus on all size organizations. This was important to us. We're not an organization that is just going after the largest deals to get the most amount of money. That's not who we are as a socially conscious company. We work with organizations. I even think our pricing is on our website. But if you have under 1,000 records and you need a few applications, I think it's under $2,000 on an annualized basis. I don't mind publicly saying this. So this is very affordable for small organizations that want to grow. Maybe you can't do team fundraising today, but to know that you can turn on a button when you can and have a fully integrated solution, or maybe you're running events, but you're not running auctions, and then you want to run auctions, you have to go buy a third party. Or if you're applying for grants and you want to track your grants, it's a wonderful system that has been built by nonprofit people that have very philanthropic, that have been on both sides, that have come over as a vendor side to really build a wonderful platform for all sizes. So I'll
Yeah,
just
and I can
pass that
answer
to
it
you,
from
Colleen.
Yeah, thank you, sir. And I can answer it from Cascadia standpoint. We operate underneath one philosophy. We meet our clients where you are. We meet our clients where you are. So we have nonprofit organizations that are small as a single W-2 employee, the executive director. We work with them. We help them do the things that they are able to do with their volunteers, with their committees, whatever it may be. And then we've also helped restructure international nonprofit organizations across all of Canada, the United States, and Mexico. So our goal is to show up for you and to meet you where you are. And so that also comes across in how we design our scopes of work and how we leverage the resources inside of our organization and how you might be able to leverage your resources, including your volunteers and your board members. Lots of great value there. We've got a lot done utilizing volunteers and board members.
We did have one question that came in. How would an organization transition from Salesforce to Ariba? Any connectivity between the two?
First of all, I love the question, and we move from a lot of multiple vendors, and it's not just Salesforce, but if you had, whether it's Salesforce and you're using an event application or a campaign management application or grant management, when you're moving over from any donor relationship management database, we have, and I really am so complimentary to this. It's not just me saying this. We have one of the best data migration teams that I have ever seen. And I really mean that. We don't just move data for the sake of moving data, whether it's Salesforce. In this case, if it was Salesforce, the way we do it is before we even sign a contract, and we do this at no charge, we will and sign any confidentiality. We do this every single day. We get a copy of your data. We review every single bio record. If you're telling us you have 1,000 records or 20,000 or 200, it doesn't matter. We give it to a dedicated data migration specialist that is here, full-time at Ariba. They look at all the bio data, the data structure. If in Salesforce, I think they do it by records. We do it by household. So if we can identify individual records and make them into a household to make your job easier, if we can flag duplicates, it is also included, data cleansing on this. We give you back a detailed report of what we've identified. Once you sign an agreement, we then move the same process and we look at this, we flag it. We have our data migration specialists dedicated to you for the entire implementation. They're not moving other people in and out. We put it in what we call data check. Once we've identified and flagged duplicates or household records for households or whatever, we schedule meetings with you. You have plenty of time to review that database. Once you reviewed it, approved it, we take it live. It's literally that simple. It's an amazing process.
Yeah, and we do the same thing. I think you're seeing a lot of alignment between how both of our organizations operate. So we do a lot of conversions and integrations as it relates to the financial systems and the HR related systems and the process systems such as Ariba. And same type of an approach. We look at risk mitigation. We look at what areas need to have contingency plans established with them. A lot of the work that Libby and I do inside of organizations is around redoing job descriptions, redoing policy and procedures, making sure that the technology once in place is supported by the organization's infrastructure and operational capacity. So I think that that's a great question, and we both handle it in a very similar way.
Well, those are all the questions that we have for now. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. You will receive your Zoom link for our second session tomorrow, about an hour before. That's coming from Ariba Marketing. So make sure you're on the lookout for that. But I will turn it over to the panel to end our session for today.
Just thank you and gratitude for being here. I know that you guys are very busy. The pressure is high right now in our nonprofit community, and to even take an hour away from what is really important to make sure that your missions are accomplished is very valuable. So we appreciate the time that you've given us and the platform that you've allowed us to go ahead and share some of our knowledge with you, and hope that you take away a few good nuggets.
Yes, I'll echo that. Thank you so much. I know having led some of the nonprofit organizations that we've had the pleasure of working with, the day-to-day can be just so hectic, and we appreciate so much the fact that you were able to carve out an hour today and perhaps an hour tomorrow as well to just really build your organizations to be stronger, to meet the needs of your communities, and to engage your stakeholders in a better way.
Well, first, I want to thank Libby and Colleen. You guys have a powerful information. And the one question I always ask is I hope everybody that's still remaining on this really got something out of it. We'd love to hear that feedback, whether you really loved it, you'd like to see something different. I'm looking forward to tomorrow's session as well. And just to, just to reiterate, I want to thank each and every one of you to spend the time, because I'm really hoping that the educational information that we're providing is going to help you, whether it's one little thing or of five other things. But I hope you got a lot about it. This is why we do it every single week, these different types of educational webinars to help the nonprofit industry as a whole. So thank you for that. Again, Libby, Colleen, and Gabby, of course, thank you for putting all of this together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you all.
Awesome.
Thank you.